Why are some people able to look you in the eye when you yell at them with rage and not even blink? Why don't they react, explain themselves, or bend? Because they know one thing: the one who controls their emotions controls you. It's not psychopathy. It's not coldness. It's the philosophy of survival in a world where emotionality has become a commodity for sale. In today's episode, I'll tell you about the most dangerous kind of intelligence. Emotional intelligence, used not to understand others, but to dominate them. This will be a journey through the thoughts of those who never allow themselves weakness, because they know the first one to show it loses. Let's start with a brutal truth. Emotions are not what you feel. Emotions are what can be used against you. People are naive. They believe that when they show anger, sadness, or love, they are authentic. But in the world of power, authenticity is weakness. It's like leaving the door to your soul wide open. Philosophers like Niccolò Machiavelli knew that power is not just force. It's the control of the emotional narrative. It's not about not feeling. It's about knowing when to feel and to whom to show it. Anger can be a weapon, but only if it's intentional. Love can be a trap, but only if you know you won't love more than the other person. Is this cold calculation? Yes, but it's also true freedom. Imagine a man who cannot be offended. Imagine a woman who cannot be manipulated by affection. Imagine a friend who will never betray your secret, because even if you let them down, they've already accepted that you're just human. These are not robots. They are masters of emotional strength. They don't need armor, because they don't enter the fight. They don't rush to defend their ego, because their ego doesn't control them. This is emotional indifference as strategy, not coldness, but discipline, not lack of feeling, but a hierarchy where reason decides and the heart obeys the command. In a world where everyone shouts their emotions on Instagram, Facebook, and in private messages, emotional silence has become a luxury and a tool of advantage. The greatest enemy of a mentally strong person: the need to be liked. Power doesn't tolerate dependency on others' reactions. That's why the first lesson for every strategist is: learn to stay silent when you're criticized. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to explain, because every explanation you give is information that can be used against you. Machiavelli wrote that the man who desires the love of the crowd will always end up as its victim. The crowd only loves those it fears, or those it's completely indifferent. When you remain unmoved, you create a myth around yourself. And the myth is stronger than the man. The myth doesn't need to explain. The myth doesn't cry in secret. The myth survives even when you disappear from view. So how do you achieve this level? How do you build an emotional fortress where no one can hurt you? First, watch yourself like an enemy. Don't trust every impulse. Ask the question: why do I feel this? What does it give me? Who can use it against me? Second, practice silence. In conversation, in conflict, in moments of humiliation. Silence frightens, because it denies access to the inner self. Third, stop expecting. Expectations breed disappointment, and disappointment triggers reactions. Reactions are signals, and signals are weakness. Your goal: to be like a black mirror, reflecting everything, revealing nothing. In a world that tells you express yourself, be authentic, show your emotions. The greatest act of rebellion is to be inaccessible, not because you're cold, but because you won't trade your world for temporary relief. The philosophy of power isn't about ruling others. It's about never being their prisoner, because only the one who has mastered their own heart can move the hearts of others and not be destroyed by that. But perhaps that's why people who have mastered the art of controlling their emotions seem so cold, so inaccessible, because in a world where everyone reacts instinctively, shouting, accusing, lamenting, a person who remains silent, who looks without retreating from anger, becomes a mystery. And in that mystery there is power. Understanding emotions is not the same as suppressing them. Machiavelli never suggested becoming a machine without feelings. He said, understand what you feel, but don't let others know that you feel it. Because when you show anger, you give others exactly what they wanted. And when you show fear, you hand over the reins. Does this mean we should be inauthentic? No. It means we should be more aware, because true authenticity isn't about spitting out every thought and every emotion without a filter. True authenticity is the awareness of what's happening within us, and the choice of when and to whom to show it. It's the difference between childish impulsivity and mature freedom. Notice that those who truly attract people are not those who are constantly authentic, but those who are emotionally impenetrable. A man or woman who cannot easily be hurt, insulted, or thrown off balance. It's next to them that you feel your anger bounce back like a stone thrown into a still pond, without echo. And here comes the most terrifying aspect of this philosophy. Emotional control doesn't just protect you from others. It makes others start to fear you, not physical fear, subtle, invisible fear. Because if you can't be manipulated, you can't be played. You're like a wall against which all attempts at provocation crash. Such people become dangerous, not because they shout but because they remain silent. Because if someone can't be thrown off balance, it means they're thinking. And if they think in silence, it means they're planning. That's why many of us avoid composed people, because their calm resembles emptiness. But that emptiness is the space where strategy is born. Machiavelli knew that the world doesn't belong to those who feel deeply. The world belongs to those who can manage what they feel. Because if you can control your own emotions, you can control the emotions of others. And in the world of relationships, conflicts and power, that means one thing: you can rule. Power that flows from silence is subtler than any form of violence, because it cannot be grasped, it cannot be taken away. Such power doesn't rely on titles or intimidation, but on psychological superiority. When you remain unshaken, others begin to perceive you as someone who knows more than they say, and that always commands respect. Does this mean you have to pretend to be someone you're not? No. It means you need to create yourself anew. Build your character not on what you feel right now, but on who you want to become. In the end, this is Machiavelli's deepest lesson. Emotions are not enemies, but if you don't learn to control them, they will control you. And a person controlled by emotions will never be free. They will be a slave to their reactions, their impulses, their wounds. But here comes the paradox. The more you try to control everything on the outside, people, their words, their actions, the more you are controlled by your inner world, your unmet needs, your wounds, your pride. The people you want to defeat have already defeated you if their behavior triggers an emotional storm within you. Machiavelli knew one thing: the greatest power is held by the one who doesn't have to react, the one who doesn't play by the opponent's rule, the one who knows how to stay silent when others shout, the one who smiles when others try to destroy them. Because true strength isn't in dominating, it's in being impossible to dominate. That's why Machiavelli didn't say become cold, he said become transparent. Don't show your fear, don't show your need for recognition, hide your hunger for approval. When you give no one access to your emotions, you are like bulletproof glass. They can see you, but they can't break you. And this is exactly what the most powerful people do. They are not necessarily the most intelligent or the most moral, but they are masters at giving nothing away. They don't win because they are better. They win because others get lost around them, emotionally, mentally, internally. Does this mean you need to be fake? No, it means you need to be selective. You need to know when you can allow yourself an emotion and when you need to wear a mask, when you can open up and when you need to pretend that you feel nothing. Because in a world full of people who hunt your weakness, naivety is not a virtue, it's an invitation to execution. Machiavelli was brutal but true, because the life you pretend is gentle and fair rarely treats you that way. He simply pulled the curtains down. He said what others were afraid to admit. He would tell you one thing: if your happiness depends on the behavior of others, you are their servant, not your own master. If their anger hurts you, you've given them power. If their attention feeds you, you become their hungry slave. And a free person is the one who can be alone with themselves, with their silence, without begging for attention, without needing approval. And maybe that's why so many people feel weak today, because they've built their identity on the foundation of emotional reaction. He hurt me, she ignored me, they didn't tell me what I wanted to hear. But Machiavelli would tell you, it wasn't them who hurt you, it was you who gave them the knife. His philosophy teaches that your life is a theater, and you choose whether you play the lead role or let yourself be pushed into the role of an extra in someone else's play. That emotions are like smoke. They rise. They are intense, but they have no structure, and you need to be the structure, the frame, the boundary. Because if you don't have boundaries, others will fill you with their words, emotions, and chaos. This doesn't mean you should be indifferent. On the contrary, you must be aware. Machiavelli said, if you don't know your emotions, someone else will use them against you. That's why the true strategist first observes themselves. Where am I weak? What provokes me? What am I addicted to? Because you know it's not love that destroys you. It's not envy. It's not anger. It's just the lack of control over them. Emotions are like fire. They can warm you, but they can also burn your entire life. And Machiavelli didn't teach you to extinguish the fire. He taught you to build a fireplace, a limit, a structure, the conscious use of what is wild and primal. And maybe that's why so many people hate him, because he says things we don't want to hear, because he tells us to stop being victims and start being responsible. And responsibility hurts, because you can no longer place the blame on others. You can't say, it's their fault I'm sad. It's because of her that I suffer. Machiavelli would answer, it's because you didn't learn to be free. And he would be right. So, what decision are you making today? Will you continue to react impulsively, giving everyone control over your inner world? Or will you, as the old Prince of Florence taught, build a fortress, not with stones, but with character? It's not about being cold. It's about being impenetrable, so that in a world full of people who want to trigger something in you, you remain sovereign, because then you are truly undefeatable. And yet the most unsettling thing is not that others can manipulate you. The most unsettling thing is that most people want to be manipulated, because responsibility for your own emotions is a burden, and manipulation is convenient. People prefer someone else to tell them what to feel, who to be angry at, who to love, and what to laugh at. They'd rather be emotionally directed than emotionally sovereign. Machiavelli understood this. He didn't despise emotions. He despised the slavery that came from them. Look at how today's world operates. Politicians, influencers, advertisements. They all play on your anger, fear, envy, and loneliness. Why? Because emotions create predictability. And predictability is power. If I know you hate betrayal, I can sell anyone as a hero who promises loyalty. If I know you fear loneliness, I can sell you a relationship, a product, or even an ideology that gives you the illusion of closeness. You're just a collection of reactions, and therefore your freedom is an illusion. But what happens when you suddenly stop reacting? When someone insults you and you smile, when they try to scare you and you stay silent, when they offer you false feelings and you reject them, the system stops, the matrix chokes, because your unpredictability becomes a threat to their game. A free person is not the one who doesn't feel, it's the one who doesn't have to react. And here comes the greatest paradox. What people call lack of emotion is often simply freedom from emotional slavery. Machiavelli never said be cold as steel. He rather said, be the master of your own temperature. Know when to ignite and when to freeze. Because the one who doesn't master themselves becomes a puppet in someone else's hands. Let's take an example. Someone betrays you. An average person explodes. They shout, throw accusations, run away. But a conscious person, someone Machiavellian intelligent, will remember not to take revenge, but to understand, because every disappointment is information, every wound is a map, and every reaction, which you restrain, is proof of strength. By restraining your anger, you don't forget. On the contrary, you remember better, because anger blurs the picture, calmness sharpens it. This isn't about pretending you don't suffer, it's about not letting suffering control you. This isn't about being above emotions, it's about building something deeper within yourself. Emotions. A personal strategy for existence, and that requires solitude, because only in silence can you learn to recognize your patterns. When no one praises you or criticizes you, you see where you react automatically. When you don't seek a foe, you suddenly see how much you were a slave to it. Silence is brutal, but it is real. And here comes the fourth pillar of this philosophy, self-knowledge as armor. Machiavelli knew there was no stronger weapon than knowledge of oneself. Because if you know your weaknesses, no one can use them against you. If you know you fear rejection, learn to accept it. If you know you seek approval, learn to cut yourself off from it. If you feel the need for control, learn to let it go. It's not the world that needs to change. You need to know your own reaction mechanism. Then you become the player, not the pawn. The author, not the victim. The observer, not just the participant. This is not a philosophy for everyone, because it requires courage to face your vulnerability. It demands brutal honesty with yourself, but in return, it gives something that most people will never experience: emotional invulnerability. Not coldness, not distance, but inner untouchability. No motivational book can give you this. No personal development course, no success coach, because this cannot be bought. It must be survived. So if you want to truly be free, don't start with what is external. Start with yourself, with what hurts you, with what controls you, with what makes you dependent on others' reactions. Machiavelli did not write a manual for tyrants. He wrote a map for those who want to stop being victims. You don't have to be cold, but you must be ready. Ready not to respond to provocation. Ready not to react to manipulation. Ready to master yourself before someone else does. Because in a world full of emotional blackmail, the greatest act of revolution is inner silence. Some think that self-mastery means giving up authenticity, that if you don't express anger, you're suppressing it. But the truth is different. Self-mastery is not about suppressing emotion. It's the awareness that anger is just one of many available tools, not a necessity. Machiavelli was not a proponent of cold dehumanization. He was a realist. He knew that the person who cannot manage themselves gets managed by others. Imagine an average person, a morning argument with their partner, a reprimand at work, a contemptuous look from a stranger, and their whole day is ruined. They are like a leaf in the wind, waiting for the world to be kind to them. But the world is not kind, and it never will be. Machiavelli knew that the person who desires peace must first master the chaos within themselves. In today's world, emotions are a commodity. Your frustration fuels algorithms. Your outrage brings profits to the media. Your emotional turmoil is a marketing tool. Before you even have a chance to ask, "Why do I feel so bad?" someone's already profiting from it. So the question is, are your emotions still yours, or have they been sold to you? Self-mastery is a rebellion against a world that wants you to react automatically. It is a quiet act of freedom, a decision not to be a pawn in a game whose rules you didn't know. When you stand in the face of provocation and do not respond with aggression, but calm, you are dangerous. Not because you are physically threatening, but because you cannot be controlled. Machiavelli was not a cynic. He was a therapist in a world sickened by power. He knew that an emotionally unstable person easily falls into fanaticism, revenge, or the illusion of salvation. That's why he advocated distance. Not because life should be emotionless, but because a person without breaks ceases to be human. They become a predictable chemical reaction. In ancient Rome, gravitas was valued, seriousness, self-control, mental balance. Today, these traits are rare because they are not profitable, but they are precisely what make someone an authority without the need for domination. Calm does not mean submission. It signals that you understand the rules deeper than those who shout. Notice that those who most often call for emotional honesty cannot stand silence. Silence confronts them with their own emptiness, and the person who knows themselves does not need to constantly express themselves. They only need to be present consciously, strongly, fully. That's why the greatest illusion of today's emotional culture is the belief that everything must be fully experienced. It's a trap, because if you have no filter, you have no boundaries. And without boundaries, you are open to every attack. Machiavelli would say, "Close the gates of your city before you know the intentions of the newcomer." In emotional terms, keep your distance before you trust. Think before you explode. Analyze before you expose yourself. This is not cynicism. It's a survival strategy. Because there are people who live to test your reactions, who throw insults not out of anger but out of curiosity, to see if you are vulnerable. Every smile, every word is a potential probe into your soul, and if they find a tender spot, they will strike. That's why you must be like a wall behind which lies a city full of secrets. Don't let them figure you out. Don't let them know what you really think. Your smile can be a mask. Your silence a response. Your "I don't know" a trap for those who think they're superior to you. Self-mastery is the art of war. fought without a sword. It is victory without battle, which tastes better than revenge, because revenge requires action, but true strength knows how not to act. And that's what paralyzes enemies the most. Mastery over oneself is the ultimate form of independence. They can take your wealth, they can destroy your reputation, they can betray you, but if you still control how you react, you are not defeated. You are indestructible. But Machiavelli wouldn't stop at introspection. He knew the world is a theater of masks, and there is no greater naivety than believing that emotions are private. Your face betrays what you think. Your breath betrays what you fear. Your reaction betrays whom you hate. That's why the greatest art is not to stop feeling. That's impossible. The greatest art is to become the actor of your own emotions before others cast you as the victim. Because in the game of power, the one who wins is not the one who is right. The one who wins is the one who shows no weakness. The one who stays silent when everyone else is shouting. The one who looks calmly when the rest lose their heads. This doesn't always bring a moral victory, but it brings survival, and for Machiavelli, survival is the condition for any greater idea. And here we come to the hardest part: loneliness. Machiavelli knew, when you stop being reactive, you become unpredictable, and that causes fear. People begin to avoid you because they can't read you. Your silence annoys them. Your restraint disturbs them.